In this video, we're talking about misconduct involving weapons and specifically the penalties that are associated with each different type of violation. In other videos, we've spoken about a class of people who cannot have access to any dangerous or prohibited weapons. They're called prohibited possessors. We've also spoken about what types of weaponry or explosives are prohibited. So what is considered a prohibited weapon? We've also spoken about what type of conduct is prohibited. So where can you not bring prohibited weapons or deadly weapons to schools, polling places, power plants, those things. Today, we're talking about the penalties for misconduct involving weapons based upon those different things. Let's run through the statute. It is ARS 13-3102, misconduct involving weapons. The penalties are defined near the end of the statute. Let's run through them. As a reminder, in Arizona, we have felony offenses and misdemeanor offenses. Felonies are much more serious. At the top, the most serious level of felony is a Class 2. At the bottom is a Class 6. Beneath that, we have what are called misdemeanors. Misdemeanors, the most serious misdemeanor is a Class 1. The least serious is a Class 3. So you have 1, 2s, and 3s. Just like in felonies, you have 2 through 6. I have them broken down this way. So the most serious are at the top, the least serious are at the bottom. So under the statute, for certain levels of crimes or possessors or weapons or conduct, where do they fall on that scale? At the top, as you can imagine, the most serious is any misconduct involving weapons that's related to terrorism. So if you look at the statute and you see the terrorism, it's going to be a Class 2 felony. It's the most serious. Obviously, anything involving explosives or firearms or any weaponry that's going to be used to promote terrorism is going to be considered very seriously seriously penalized under Arizona law. The next level is for these three different types of violations. So anything that's gang related, anything that involves a person giving a weapon or giving explosives or firearms to an individual knowing that they're going to go commit a felony, or anything that involves discharging a weapon at a structure, those are all going to be Class 3 felonies. So like drive-by shootings, or if you're actually transferring a weapon to somebody who's going to go commit a felony offense, those are going to be the next level down, so a Class 3. The most common by far are these that are in Class 4 categories. So possession of a prohibited weapon. So if you have a rocket or a grenade, or you have a sawed-off shotgun, you have a firearm that has been modified to be illegal, and you're in possession of that, that's going to be a Class 4. This is hands down the most common type of misconduct that we see, but it's somebody who is a prohibited possessor being in possession of a weapon. It doesn't have to be a prohibited weapon. It can be a weapon that is just a standard firearm like this, but if they have a felony conviction and they're not allowed to have any weapons whatsoever, they're considered a prohibited possessor. So if they have possession of that, that's going to be a Class 4 felony. Also, if a weapon is used in the commission of another felony, so a breaking and entering, a burglary, or an aggravated domestic violence case or an aggravated assault, if they use a prohibited weapon, that's going to be considered a Class 4 felony. Or if it's used in a criminal syndicate or a gang, anything that's being used by any gang activity or criminal syndicate activity is going to be a Class 4 felony. If you are selling or transferring a weapon to a prohibited possessor, so not being used to commit a felony, but you're just giving them a weapon, whether it's explosives or firearms, that's going to make it a Class 6 felony. If the individual has concealed a firearm in their car and they're committing a crime, they're in the process of committing a dangerous crime, a violent crime, or a felony, that's also going to be a Class 6 felony if the firearm's in the vehicle or on their person. Or if you have possession of a defaced firearm. So let's say, for example, we saw this here in one of my other videos about this serial number. If that serial number is scratched off or dremeled off and rubbed off, and you're in possession of a defaced firearm, that would be a Class 6 felony. Or if you are actually the person who did the defacing, that's going to be a Class 6 felony as well. So those are all the felony offenses. Any of these are all misdemeanor offenses. So they're still criminal charges, but they're lower level offenses. So failure to notify the police officer. So if you're stopped for a speeding ticket and a police officer asks you, do you have a weapon in your car? You fail to disclose that, fail to notify the officer of that, and the officer finds it because you had a driving on a suspended license charge, they impound your car, they find the weapon in there and you didn't tell them, they're going to charge you with a crime. It's called misconduct involving weapons, failure to notify. That's a class 1 misdemeanor. Same with failing to remove the firearm if you're asked to do so. There are certain situations where if you go to a public event or an establishment and you're allowed to have a firearm, but you're asked to remove the firearm, there's a reasonable request to do so, it's a lawful request, and you fail to do that, they can charge you with a crime for that. There's a lot more to that statute. It's not common, but if you see that, you're going to want to make sure that you or your lawyer definitely review that section of the statutes. Similarly, you cannot have a firearm at a polling place or a school. If you do, they're going to charge you with the class 1 misdemeanor. Again, there are certain exceptions for that. If you're a law enforcement officer, military, if you've got some sort of special privilege to have it in there, this is not going to apply to you. But if you have a firearm at a polling place or anything like that, it's good. They can charge you with a crime for that. The lowest level that we see is if you're under the age of 21 and you have a firearm in your car, or you have a deadly weapon in your car, whatever that is, and it's concealed, and an officer finds that, then they can charge you with a class 3 misdemeanor. So class 3 is the lowest. Remember that. Most, like I said, that we see that are misconduct involving weapons charge are the class 4. By far, it's the most common. We see prohibited possessors. Hands down, it's the most common offense. People don't realize that they have a felony conviction. They may have thought that their rights have been restored. They may be a person who is a felon, a convicted felon, but they may be just in close proximity to somebody who is not a convicted felon who has a firearm. So we see that a lot. People will be stopped. There'll be a firearm in the back of the car. The driver of the car is an individual who doesn't have a felony conviction, but the passenger does. Police will say, okay, well, he was in possession constructively of that weapon, and they'll charge him with a misconduct involving weapons. It's a class 4 felony. Anything that's in the felony range is certainly serious. Anything that's a misdemeanor is also serious, depending on your background. You want to make sure that you're not convicted of any crimes, make sure that your record is kept as clean and clear as possible, and certainly make sure that you're not going to jail or prison and being locked up based upon your record. So if you've been charged with misconduct involving weapons, if you're facing criminal charges, you absolutely want to make sure that you at least consult with an attorney to talk about your case and see what the facts are. See if there's a solid defense that we can employ that's going to make sure that you're not convicted of any of these felonies. If you're convicted of a felony, you have to consider where you're going to fall in the sentencing chart. It can be complicated. You can have aggravators, you can have mitigators. So definitely give us a call. We offer free case evaluations. We're happy to sit down with you, run through your specific case, make sure you have a good plan moving forward. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks for watching.